now, here's 5-Star Wrestling Podcast Eddie Valiant with Eddie Valiant's Hot Take.
All right, welcome everybody to another exciting edition of Eddie Valiant's Hot Take. I'm your main man, Eddie Valiant here. And this week was a relatively weird week in wrestling because it was a taped week in wrestling for the most part. Either that or shows just held their best of 2019s, which I guess is okay if you want to see what they did great in 2019. But for the most part, Monday Night Raw was taped. Friday Night SmackDown this past weekend was live. So by the time you're hearing this, but we're not discussing that. That is for the following week. We are covering everything that happened from the Friday SmackDown before all the way up to GCW's Jimmy All the Way, which happened on Thursday night. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm your host, Eddie Valiant, and you can follow me on Twitter, the Twitter machine, at Eddie Valiant82. That's Eddie with an IE, Valiant82. That's me on Twitter. You can also check out my blog. It is mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Again, that's mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Mr. X's Punch Out. There every week I report on the top matches of the week. I start my weeks on Fridays and end them on a Thursday. There you go. There you have it. So again, today, as I said, we're going to discuss some of the stuff that's happened wrestling-wise, but really I want to talk about GCW's Jimmy All the Way. Now, for those of you that don't know, GCW is Game Changer Wrestling, not to be confused with another company that has the same three initials, which I did by accident on Instagram. No, it's Game Changer Wrestling, and they're this, I want to say they're like your new deathmatch friendly kind of company, kind of like CZW, which is Combat Zone Wrestling. They're like that. They promote death matches, all sorts of stuff like that, you know, the fun stuff, the stuff that I can't stand watching to begin with. I don't mind, you know, I'm the kind of guy that I don't mind, you know, tables, ladders, chairs. It's when it starts going in a slightly different direction is when I tend to back out, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. And quite frankly, you know, looking back, I believe it was the last AEW pay-per-view, if my memory serves me correct. I believe it was AEW Full Gear, the event in Baltimore. There was the unsanctioned Lights Out match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, and it got to a point where I was like, this is a little uncomfortable, but not bad. But I mean, you know, you bring out a bed of barbed wire, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? No, I don't think so. You know, I'm not into it. I'm not doing it. There's a reason why I'm not a professional wrestler, and that always reminds me, you know, of that very instance. Like, yeah, that's why I don't do this at all. So, yeah, but last night anyways, on GCW, the always wonderful Jimmy Lloyd hosted his own event called Jimmy All the Way, instead of Jingle All the Way, get it? Jimmy All the Way. And it actually, for the most part, featured some really good matches. This is definitely an event you're going to want to go on Fight TV, and you're definitely going to want to watch it. One of my favorite matches, Ophidian versus Tony Deppen. That was a great match. Ophidian's just showing how amazing his in-work ability is, and then matching his style with Tony Deppen. Those two went to war. Blake Christian taking on Jordan Oliver. Blake Christian had no idea who he was before that event started, but he's definitely on my radar now. That kid can do some things in the ring. Both him and Oliver just worked really well. I'm just not a fan of Jordan Oliver. I think his character's trash. But nonetheless, whatever. That's not the point. But there were a lot of great matches. Lucky 13 versus Jason Cade. That was the first match of the night. That was amazing. Joey Janela's commentary was just amazing. The bad boy. Joey Janela just absolutely ridiculous on the mic. He's always fun to listen to. You had Manders take on Homicide. It was cool to see the original member of LAX still kicking it, still doing it. We had probably a really great, they called it a scramble match, and it was really good. You had Treehouse Lee versus Grim Reaper versus Steve Sanders versus Dougie Mosa versus Jonathan Wolf versus KTB, a.k.a. Cal the Beast. And it was a great match. Just spot central. Then it switched over to, they did a simulcast. First time ever. GCW, Game Changer Wrestling on Independent Wrestling TV. And Beyond Wrestling, first time ever on Fight TV. And they had Chris Dickinson versus Ricky Shane Page. And it was actually a very good match for the most part. Until Chuck O'Neil had to interfere. Gotta hate Chuck O'Neil. Nonetheless, moving on. And the point I want to talk about is even Dan Maff versus Jimmy Lloyd wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? There was some moments where, you know, they grabbed like a table, or actually it was a door, but they used it like a table, smashing guys through it. You know, you see Dan Maff do the burning hammer, you know, through the table. That's how he won the match, but nothing really extreme. And then all of a sudden the main event comes along and Nick fucking Gage is in the match. You can't say his name without saying Nick fucking Gage. And MDK all fucking day. You know what I mean? I've seen the man live at Beyond Wrestling and actually on other promotions enough times to know that shit. But anyways, it was him and Matt Tremont taking on Schlack and Jeff King. And apparently this was a discovery of sorts for Jeff King. I turned the match off, and this is the God's honest truth. I don't care if you believe it or you don't, but this is the God's honest truth. I remember seeing in a preview somewhere, I know there's a moment where somebody goes through a glass, that piece of, like a huge piece of glass. I don't know where the hell they got it from, but Nick Gage was underneath, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing that. I don't know why, a strange reason, but obviously looking forward to seeing it. Nonetheless, I got to the part where Nick Gage brings in a cheese grater and starts going at, you know, I think it was Jeff King. He starts going at Jeff King's forehead. And I was like, you know what? I'm fucking done with this. I don't understand. I don't understand the need for this per se. I just was like, yeah, I don't get it. I'm like, all right, cool. And I shut it off because I'm like, you know what? I'm not a fan of death matches. I don't give a shit about guys who think it's cool to put themselves through, you know, fluorescent light bulbs and whatever the hell else they put themselves through and stabbing themselves. I'm telling you one thing right now. If another wrestler ever came to me and tried to stab me with something, I'd make sure I'd shove that up their asses. Because, man... And again, and I don't knock guys that want to do it. I don't. I'm not Jim Cornette, all right? I'm not going to sit here and call you an idiot for doing it and whatever else Jim Cornette has said in the past. It's like anything, right? I'm a metal guy, and I'd probably, if I could sing and had an ounce of talent, I probably would be more of a Judas Priest kind of singer. If I had my way. Or I would be like Phil Anselmo of Pantera, possibly. but I'm not gonna knock a guy because he can sound like an evil dwarf witch, like they do in black metal or even sound like the Cookie Monster in death metal. Like, dude, if you can do it, you can do it. I'm not gonna knock your music. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with wrestling. I'm not gonna knock the fact that you like going through glass tables and through barbed wire and explosions and all sorts of shit. Like, hey man, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. And I've always said that. And with that being said, I can't. It's just me, man. I can't watch those. If you had come up to me 17 years ago and said, all right, you're going to watch all these death matches, I'd probably be like, all right, sounds good. I'm hardcore, And then to today, it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not really hardcore. I'm not that hardcore. My hardcore is probably the WWE version of hardcore. I'm not even ECW original hardcore. So that should tell you something right there. Nonetheless, it was a fun show. A very, very fun show. So if you get to see it, watch it at your discretion, and take into consideration, all these things. And if you can watch hardcore matches, then man, knock yourself the fuck out and go for it. One of the things I want to talk about is Lars Sullivan. I never got to talk enough about Lars Sullivan, but I gotta be honest in saying that I really honestly believe this guy's career is over. And I don't know if it's him, and it shouldn't even matter. Really, to be honest, it shouldn't even matter. But it looks like he's got a career in porn. There was this video that somebody posted. It wrote, it was something about, Lars Sullivan saying, "Oh, I'm pretty hardcore," and then, then at the bottom it's Pornhub coughs, and then all of a sudden there's this video, and it's this guy that looks like Lars Sullivan. I mean, he's the size of a tank. Like, Lars Sullivan is the size of a tank, and he goes by the name Mitch. All right, that's all I know. And it's basically, like, hey, you've never done gay porn before? Like, you've never gotten a, fellatio from another man? And it's like, and he's like, nope, never done that, but, and always willing to try. Well, that's the spirit, right? So anyway, so that's out there, and it's just like, man, I really wonder. I'm like, is that Lars Sullivan? Not that it matters. Again, hey, Candice Michelle was in softcore porn before she was in the WWE. And it worked out for her, but nonetheless, if his career wasn't over because of the fact that he was homophobic, for the fact of the things that he has said in the past that came up as soon as he got injured, then I don't know what. But the fact of the matter also is that he could just be done because, man, this knee injury or whatever injury he has is really hindering him bad. Very, very bad. To the fact that he was supposed to come back in January, now he won't come back till June. And that's even, and they've even said it, that's even if he does come back. They're not even 100% positive he'll be back by June. But anyways, back to this discovery of him doing porn. Somebody actually measured up the tattoo that he has in this picture of screenshots that they got from the videos, and they matched it up with Lars Sullivan of today and a picture Lars Sullivan used on his bodybuilding website that he had the homophobic slurs and whatnot, and sure enough, it's him. So, Lars, you always got that career to fall back on. But, yeah, anyways, let's move on from that. I've always tried to think of, how to thank wrestlers that put their bodies on the line day in and day out. Every time they step in the ring, it's a risk that they're taking, right? And unfortunately, the other night in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Randy Orton was facing AJ Styles in a one-on-one match, and apparently when he went to deliver the RKO, he landed very awkwardly, and it appears that Randy suffered a leg injury, and probably a serious one. So any plans with Randy for the future are probably dashed, which absolutely sucks. Uh, People that know me know that I am a huge Randy Orton fan, and believe that Randy's definitely, top 20 material, bar none, as far as, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He's definitely up there. And it just sucks. So the match was stopped, obviously. His match against AJ and Hershey. And it's unfortunate because we won't get the follow-up or the lead-up to what this rivalry could have been. But nonetheless, we want to take the time to wish Randy a speedy recovery. My hopes and prayers are with him. He's definitely just one of the best all around, and he's got skills you can't teach. Nonetheless, so Randy, get better. All right. As I said earlier, some of the events that happened this past week were taped, like WWE Raw, MLW Fusion, NXT on USA was obviously taped. They were in two different places for most of their matches. But nonetheless, some of them were really good, and Monday Night Raw was kind of a hit or miss for me. It was good for the most part. But NXT was absolutely amazing, and it's kind of funny because it didn't matter whether they were taped or not. They were still great matches, like Austin Theory versus Roderick Strong, which kicked off the show. Just absolute insanity right there. You had, Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Jack Gallagher, which was a good match. You had Bronson Reed and Dominik Dijakovic taking on one each other, and that was absolutely amazing. So overall, I mean, there's some great matches this week, especially if you're looking for some stuff to watch. If you get a chance, go back to the December 21st edition of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Road to Tokyo. That was some insane stuff. Right there, some great matches. I have been a big fan of Japanese pro wrestling, especially the fact that we saw Will Ospreay and Tomohiro Ishii taking on Evil and Hiromu Takahashi in a tag team match, which was absolutely insane. I can't wait for these guys in their matches. You had Bushi versus Zack Sabre Jr., which in itself was a great match. Bushi stealing the win from Zack Sabre Jr. And then one of the other matches was Okada, but Okada and Bushi both teamed up with. I'm trying to remember right now who they teamed up with. Excuse me for that. But anyways, if you get to see that match, you can see that match as well. Tetsuya Naito and Shingo Takagi. Shingo Takagi, definitely one of my favorite wrestlers in Japan right now. They took on Jay White and Chase Owens, and what was a battle? El Phantasmo and Gedo versus... it was El Phantasmo, Ishimori, and Gedo taking on Yo, Show of Roppongi 3K, and Robbie Eagles. That was a great match as well. So a lot of great stuff this week as far as wrestling is concerned. I even watched Chris Masters take on a Pakistani wrestler named, now if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize, is Badshah Palawan Khan. Hopefully I got that right. Badshah Palawan Khan is the Ring of Pakistan champion, and he took on Chris Masters in Pakistan. Fun time. And then there was a show that I think I'm going to be a big fan of this company. They're called FLQ. They're Federation Lutte Quebec, and they had an event on the Fight TV app last Saturday. We saw Tyson Dukes take on Josh Briggs. We saw Stu Grayson go against Evil Uno, and I'm trying to remember the other guy, and the Beast Man. That was the other guy, and that was a great match. Some good stuff there. So there's plenty of wrestling to go around. You just got to go and find it. You know what I mean? On MLW Fusion, very interesting match was Alexander Hammerstone taking on MJF. Now, the whole time you're thinking these are two Dynasty members, and they've got to fight each other in the first round of the Opera Cup, and you got to think, yeah, something's got to give. One of them's not going to budge. Excuse me. And that's what you're thinking the whole time, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, here comes the finger poke, and both of them finger poke each other, but yet not one of them refuses to go down for the other. That turns ugly. Hammerstone actually goes to battle with MJF. They have a great match. Hammerstone wins. Hammerstone moves on. And is everything all good in the Dynasty right now? Who knows? I guess you'll just have to find out the next time we have MFW Fusion. All right, I want to just mention some brief things before we end the show. One, there's a rumor going around that Beer Money wants to reunite, except it was just the fact that the WWE highlighted some surprise appearances on NXT, and James Storm took the number one spot right there, and a fan tweeted out, "Please do this, bring it back, one of my all-time favorite teams, hashtag Beer Money." James Storm then replies, "Up to the powers that be." I personally wouldn't mind seeing this. I actually loved Beer Money and would love to see James Storm come back to the WWE. The only problem is that Robert Roode is still serving his 30-day suspension for violating the WWE's wellness policy, so that remains to be seen. In other news, apparently Chris Statlander was supposed to face Riho for the AEW Women's Championship on AEW Dynamite on New Year's Day, but due to prior commitments, she's not going to be able to make it. Therefore, AEW has changed the match and made it a fatal four-way, as Riho will now defend her title against Nyla Rose, Britt Baker, and Hikaru Shida in a fatal four-way match. I'm cool with that. I also like the fact that AEW is allowing her to do her thing. Apparently, she's going to wrestle for Beyond Wrestling on New Year's Eve, and then she's wrestling for Bar Wrestling in Los Angeles on New Year's Day. That's cool of them to allow her to fulfill prior commitments. And finally, in what should not be news, but it is news, apparently Paul Heyman in 2020 is looking to push Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black, as well as pushing Drew McIntyre, Charlotte. I don't know why she needs another push. And Ricochet in 2020. Now, honestly, Drew McIntyre, Buddy Murphy, and Aleister Black all should have gotten huge pushes already. Those guys are bona fide superstars of the future. Drew McIntyre, future champ. Aleister Black, future champ. All I'm going to say. So that is going to do it for me this week. There's going to be a lot of great wrestling moving forward into 2020. I may have some big plans for you guys moving forward in 2020 regarding the show and the way that Eddie Valiant's hot take is done. And maybe whether it is done or not done will also be a question to be answered in 2020. I know I got some episodes left in me. We'll see how that works. As well as I've got some big news. We have the awards coming up on mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Again, mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. We are having our 2019 end of the year awards. And basically, we're working on the categories right now, but you, the fans, will be able to vote on who you believe is the male wrestler of the year and the female wrestler of the year, as well as tag team of the year, breakout stars of 2019, and so on and so forth. It's always been fun. I used to do the wrestler of the year every year. Last year was the first year we didn't really do it. I was a little busy. But nonetheless, that is going to be coming pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that. You guys will be able to vote, on who you believe should be the wrestler of the year. There's a lot of great contestants. This is the largest group we've ever had. We have 14 or 15 names, just with all the different companies that there are. The fact that the WWE is so large, stuff like that. It's going to be cool. We'll definitely keep you guys updated when that comes out. But as for me, that is it. Eddie Valiant 82. That's right, at Eddie Valiant 82 on Twitter, EDDIE Valiant 82. Follow me there. Give me a follow, a like, whatever the hell it is on Twitter, and I will see you guys next time.